The invitation arrived in thick, cream-colored paper, the kind that smells faintly of ink and money. Daniel and Sophia invite you to celebrate. The letters were embossed, elegant, confident, just like my brother. I stared at my name printed beneath immediate family, and felt a familiar knot tighten in my chest. Family, that word had always meant something different for Daniel than it did for me. The wedding was held in a luxury hotel overlooking the city skyline. From the glass walls, the buildings looked like obedient soldiers standing at attention, reflecting the sunset in shades of gold. Everything about the evening screamed success: valet parking, champagne towers, live violinists. Daniel had made it, and he wanted the world to know. I arrived alone. As I walked into the hall, I caught glimpses of people Daniel admired: investors, startup founders, executives in dark suits who shook hands like deals were being sealed even during celebrations. They laughed loudly, confidently, as if the world had always bent in their favor. Daniel moved among them effortlessly, a groom glowing with pride, his arm around Sophia, who looked stunning and perfectly placed at his side. No one noticed me at first. That was normal. I took a seat near the back, smoothing my dress over my knees, reminding myself that I was here because he was my brother. Because despite everything, I still believed blood meant loyalty. The ceremony passed beautifully. Vows were exchanged, tears were shed, applause echoed. I clapped when everyone else did, smiling when expected, even though a quiet ache sat in my chest. I remembered a very different version of Daniel, one who used to sit at my kitchen table at 2 a.m., head in his hands, whispering, "If this fails, I'm done." Back then, he needed me. At the reception, waiters floated between tables carrying plates that looked like art and glasses that never stayed empty. Music played softly in the background as conversations rose and fell. I watched Daniel laugh with his friends, soaking in admiration like sunlight. Then came the speeches. Daniel stood up, tapping his glass with a spoon. The room gradually fell silent. Everyone leaned in. This was his moment. "I just want to say," he began, smiling broadly, "that none of this would have been possible without the incredible people who believed in me." Applause followed. My investors, my mentors, my team. People who understood vision, risk, and smart financial decisions. Another pause. His eyes scanned the room, and then, inevitably, they found me, and of course. He chuckled, shaking his head playfully. There were people who didn't quite get it. You know, not everyone is built for finance. Light laughter rippled through the crowd. Some people, he continued, lifting his glass, are just financial idiots. The room laughed louder this time. My ears rang. For a second, everything felt unreal, like I was watching the scene from underwater. I could see mouths moving, shoulders shaking with amusement, but the sound felt distant. My brother had said it so casually, so confidently, like it was a harmless joke everyone should enjoy. Everyone except me. I felt heat rise to my face, my throat tightening as memories crashed into me all at once. The night I emptied my savings to cover his payroll. The weekends I spent reviewing contracts while he partied with potential clients. The legal structures I built to protect him when his own partners betrayed him. No one laughed then. No one applauded then. I glanced toward our parents' table. My mother smiled weakly, eyes darting away when she met mine. My father cleared his throat, lifting his glass without looking at me. Silence heavy and familiar. I forced my hands to clap. If I didn't, it would be obvious. If I didn't, I would be the problem. Daniel raised his glass higher. "To success," he declared, "to success." The room echoed. I swallowed hard, my smile frozen in place. Inside, something cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but deep enough that I knew it would never heal the same way. At that moment, Daniel believed he stood above me. He believed money had rewritten our history. He believed I was small. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while he spoke loudly in boardrooms and banquet halls, I had worked quietly in the background. That the company he bragged about had safeguards he never bothered to understand. That control didn't always sit in the loudest chair. As the applause faded and the music resumed, I stood up calmly, adjusted my dress, and walked toward the exit. No tears fell. I saved those for later, because humiliation burns fast, but power waits. And that night, as my brother celebrated his victory, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never beg for respect again. I didn't leave the wedding angry. That surprised me. Anger is loud, explosive, and reckless. What I felt was colder, clearer, the kind of calm that settles in after you finally stop lying to yourself. Outside, the city hummed with late night traffic and neon lights. I stood under the hotel's awning for a moment, breathing in the cool air, letting the echoes of Daniel's laughter fade behind me. Somewhere upstairs, champagne glasses were clinking in my brother's honor. Down here, I felt something else taking shape. Resolve, Daniel had always been the visible one, the charismatic speaker, the dreamer who could sell confidence even when the numbers didn't agree. I was the opposite, quiet, careful, methodical. Growing up, teachers praised his ambition and called my caution hesitation. At family gatherings, relatives asked him about his plans and asked me when I'd figure things out. No one noticed that while Daniel talked, I calculated. When he first came to me with his business idea, years before the wedding, I almost said no. He was brilliant but reckless, convinced success was inevitable simply because he believed in it hard enough. But he was my brother, sitting across from me at my kitchen table with dark circles under his eyes and fear barely hidden beneath bravado. "I just need help getting through the first year," he said. "Once the investors see potential, I'll be fine." I helped him build the financial model. Then I helped him revise it again and again until it could survive scrutiny. When his first partner vanished with company funds, I helped Daniel salvage what was left. I brought in a lawyer friend, drafted emergency agreements, and reorganized the company structure so something like that could never happen again. That was when I insisted on safeguards, just formalities. I told him gently as he signed the documents without reading them carefully. Protection for everyone. He trusted me, or rather, he underestimated me. I didn't take a flashy title or a salary. Instead, I accepted equity, small percentages placed strategically through holding entities I controlled. Each piece alone looked insignificant. Together, they formed leverage, board voting rights, contingency clauses. Silent authority, Daniel never asked questions. He was too busy chasing growth, too confident in his momentum. Now, timing matters. I watched him rise, watched him give interviews and accept awards. Watched him speak about resilience without mentioning the people who carried him through collapse. I corrected his financial blind spots quietly, sent warnings he skimmed, and smoothed problems before they reached his desk. I protected him even when he didn't deserve it, until the wedding. After that night, I stopped intervening. At the next board meeting, I logged in early, camera off, listening as Daniel spoke enthusiastically about expansion plans. He glossed over numbers I knew were weak, dismissed risks I had flagged months earlier. When it was my turn to speak, the room hesitated. "I'd like clarification on our short-term liabilities," I said calmly, specifically the deferred obligations tied to our overseas contracts. Daniel waved a hand. "We've got that covered." I didn't argue. I simply asked the board to review the data. The mood shifted. Over the next few weeks, questions multiplied. Audits were requested. Executives began looking more closely at reports they had previously accepted without discussion. The confidence Daniel relied on started to crack under scrutiny. He called me one night, irritation sharp in his voice. "Why are you suddenly making things difficult?" he asked. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm just not cleaning up after you anymore." There was a long pause on the line. "You're overreacting about a joke," he said finally. "Maybe, but jokes reveal truth more honestly than arguments ever could." As concerns grew, I finally turned my camera on during a board meeting. Faces stiffened when they saw me fully present, not just a quiet name on the screen. "I think it's time we discuss governance," I said, "and accountability." Silence followed. I wasn't attacking Daniel. I didn't need to. The The numbers spoke for themselves. The safeguards I had built years ago now activated naturally, one by one, like dominoes falling exactly as designed. For the first time, Daniel realized he wasn't the only one holding the company together. By the end of the meeting, he looked unsettled. I closed my laptop slowly, my reflection staring back at me in the dark screen. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. I had spent years being invisible by choice. Now, invisibility had become my advantage. The hand no one noticed. It was already turning the wheel. The email arrived on a quiet Monday morning. Mandatory board session executive review. No emojis, no pleasantries. Just a time, a date, and an agenda that was intentionally vague. I read it twice, then once more, not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. This wasn't routine. This was reckoning. Daniel called me within minutes. "Do you know what this is about?" he asked, trying to sound casual. He'd always believed confidence could bend reality. "I assume it's about the company." I replied evenly. A sharp exhale. "You've been stirring things up lately." I smiled to myself, though my voice stayed calm. "I've been doing my job." He scoffed and hung up. The boardroom was all glass and steel, minimalist, expensive, intimidating by design. I arrived early as always. There's power in being prepared and silent. One by one, the board members entered, nodding politely, their expressions guarded. Daniel arrived last, tie perfectly straight, posture confident, arrogance worn like armor. He took the head seat out of habit. No one corrected him. The chair felt heavier this time. The meeting opened with financial reviews. Each slide peeling back layers Daniel had ignored. Slower growth, risk exposure, governance concerns. With every data point, his smile thinned, then disappeared entirely. Finally, the chairman leaned forward. "There's a deeper issue here," he said. "Leadership." Daniel laughed nervously. "Come on, you don't build a company like this without making a few aggressive choices." I spoke then, my voice steady. "Aggression isn't the problem," I said. "Unaccountability is." Daniel turned toward me sharply. "Excuse me." I met his eyes without flinching. "You make unilateral decisions that affect shareholders without disclosure. You dismiss risk assessments, and when challenged, you rely on charm instead of facts." The room went silent. Daniel stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Since when do you have authority to lecture me?" I slid a folder across the table. "Since I became the deciding vote." He stared at it, confused, then opened it. His face drained of color as he scanned the document's equity breakdowns, voting structures, clauses he had never bothered to read. "That's not possible," he whispered. "It is," I said quietly, "and it's been that way for years." He looked around the room, searching for support. None came. "You're saying you control the board?" he asked, disbelief cracking his voice. "I'm saying the company has never been as unbalanced as you thought," I replied. "I didn't take control. I protected it." The chairman cleared his throat. "We've reached a consensus." Daniel sank back into his chair. The vote was swift, clinical, professional. Daniel was removed as CEO, effective immediately. No shouting. No drama, just signatures and procedure. He sat frozen, staring at the table like it had betrayed him. After the meeting ended, the room emptied quickly, leaving only the two of us. For the first time in years, Daniel looked smaller, like the boy who once begged me to help him fix a mistake he couldn't undo. "You humiliated me," he said hoarsely. I shook my head. "You humiliated yourself. I just stopped shielding you." He laughed bitterly. "So this is revenge." "No," I said softly. "This is consequence." He stood pacing. "I trusted you, and I honored that trust." I replied. "Long after you stopped deserving it." He stopped pacing, finally meeting my eyes. "You could have destroyed me completely," he said. "Yes," I agreed, "but I didn't. Because revenge doesn't have to be cruel to be complete." I walked out of the boardroom without another word, heels echoing softly against marble. There was no applause waiting outside, no sense of victory rushing through my veins, just quiet and clarity. Power, I had learned, doesn't need to raise its voice. It only needs to be undeniable. The weeks after the board meeting passed in an unexpected calm. No headlines screamed Daniel's fall, no gossip blogs speculated wildly. The transition was smooth, intentionally so. The board announced a strategic leadership realignment, and Daniel stepped back under the careful language of mutual agreement. To the outside world, nothing had shattered, but inside our family, everything had changed. The first time we gathered again was at our parents' house for Sunday dinner. The table was set the same way it always had been: polished wood, familiar dishes, a sense of forced normalcy clinging to the air. Yet the silence between us felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Daniel arrived late. He looked different. Not broken, not defeated, but quieter. The sharp confidence he once carried had softened into something more cautious. When he met my eyes, there was no sarcasm, no superiority, just uncertainty. Dinner passed slowly. Forks clinked against plates. My mother kept glancing between us, clearly waiting for an explosion that never came. Finally, she cleared her throat. "I didn't know," she said, looking at me, "about everything you did for the company." I nodded. "You never asked." Her eyes filled with regret. My father stared at his hands. "I thought Daniel handled all of that," he muttered. "That's what he wanted everyone to think," I replied, not unkindly. No one argued. After dinner, Daniel followed me out onto the porch. The night air was cool, the city lights distant and quiet. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I replay that wedding speech a lot. He said finally, "I didn't think it would cost me this." I leaned against the railing. "It didn't cost you your company. It cost you your illusion." He nodded slowly. "I was cruel." "Yes," I said simply. Another pause. "You saved me," he admitted, "even when you didn't have to." I looked at him, then really looked. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was acknowledging truth. "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it for myself. I needed to stop shrinking so you could feel tall." A sad smile crossed his face. "I always thought you were afraid of the spotlight." "I'm not afraid," I said. "I just don't need it." Over the next months, life settled into something new. I took on a visible role with the board, shaping policy, strengthening governance, ensuring transparency. People listened when I spoke, not because I demanded attention, but because my words carried weight. Daniel stayed on as a shareholder. He attended meetings quietly, thoughtfully. He asked questions now, real ones. Sometimes after meetings, he'd nod at me with a respect that felt unfamiliar but genuine. The family shifted too. Relatives who once dismissed me now asked for advice. My parents called more often, not to check on Daniel, but to ask how I was doing. The revenge I'd imagined for years had been loud in my mind: arguments, confrontations, apologies delivered through tears. What I got instead was better: recognition. One evening, months later, I received a message from Daniel. "You were never a financial idiot. You were the smartest person in the room. I'm sorry it took me losing power to see that." I read it once, then I closed my phone. I didn't need to reply, because revenge isn't about watching someone fall. It's about watching yourself rise without becoming bitter. I had my dignity, I had my voice, and I had learned a truth I would carry forever. The quiet ones don't seek revenge loudly. They build lives so strong that disrespect simply can't survive near them, and that's the sweetest ending of all.